They said I'd break. They said I'd come crawling back, eventually. They whispered, "She'll regret it." But the silence that followed, it wasn't regret. It was resurrection. I didn't chase. I didn't beg. I didn't even turn around. What they thought was me falling apart was actually me falling into place. They thought they were the main characters in my story, but I was just now learning to pick up the pen. It wasn't revenge. It was return. Not to them. To myself. My name is Ava Monroe. I'm 27 years old. I live in Asheville, North Carolina. And this is the story of how losing them became the best thing that ever happened to me. I was always the girl with a plan. In high school, they called me CEO Ava. Not because I was ruthless or cutthroat, but because I had my whole life mapped out in color-coded folders. I was going to be a corporate attorney, live in a glass condo in Charlotte, marry someone tall, educated, and obsessed with me. 2 kids, 1 dog, and on Sundays, brunch with my perfect in-laws. For years, I stayed on that track. Pre-law at UNC, top of my class, internships in the city, networking events, power suits. I was living exactly how they told me I should, polished, prepared, respected. But underneath the surface, I was exhausted. My days were full but not fulfilling. I'd smile at boardroom victories, but my chest felt hollow. I'd write essays on justice and equity, but couldn't even breathe in my own skin. My dreams had turned into a checklist, and I didn't know how to tell anyone that the life I built felt like a cage. Then came Ethan. He was different, or so I thought. He wasn't like the future husbands I pictured. He was creative, a freelance filmmaker with a crooked smile and long conversations. He saw the cracks in my perfect world and didn't run, he leaned in. For the first time, someone didn't want the image of me.
He wanted me.
Or so I believed. I started to shift. Gave up a firm internship in DC to stay close. Started looking into nonprofit law instead of corporate. Began writing again, something I hadn't done since high school. At first, everyone thought I was just being romantic. Young love, they said. It'll pass. But I didn't want it to pass. I wanted to stay in this version of me, the freer, softer, truer Ava. The only problem? Ethan was falling in love with the idea of saving me, not staying with me. Once I stopped needing him to rescue me, he lost interest. It started small, missed calls, late replies, vague answers. "I've just got a lot going on right now," he'd say, brushing past my questions. Then came the distance. Less time. Less warmth. Less us. One morning, I woke up to a text message. "You're amazing, Ava. I just think we're in different places. Don't hate me." That was it. No conversation. No closure. Just a soft ghosting wrapped in cowardice. I sat there for hours, rereading those words. Not crying. Not angry. Just still. When I told my mom, she sighed and said, "Well, honey, at least now you can get back on track." Get back on track. That sentence hurt more than Ethan's message. As if all of this detour into love, softness, curiosity, was just a distraction from the real me. As if the only version of myself that mattered was the one with the resume and the salary. My father didn't even say anything, just nodded and went back to watching the news. My sister joked, "I knew that artsy stuff wouldn't last." It wasn't just Ethan who left me. It was like everyone turned the page, expecting me to resume my role, to return to being the Ava they were comfortable with. And for a while, I tried. I reapplied to corporate firms, dusted off the LSAT books, smiled through Sunday dinners and said things like, "I'm doing great, and it's all for the best." But every time I opened that textbook, I felt like I was swallowing dry air. My body was still, but my soul was kicking and screaming. So one night, I made a decision I didn't tell anyone about. I closed the books. I emailed the recruiters. I unsubscribed from the law newsletters. And I walked away. From the career. From the expectations. From the version of me everyone loved more than I did. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't have money saved. I didn't even have a new dream. But I had a voice inside that whispered, "Good. Now we begin." No one noticed. No one called to ask why I didn't show up to the networking gala. No one asked why my LinkedIn was suddenly inactive. No one missed me. They just assumed I was chasing someone, maybe Ethan. But they didn't know. I was chasing something else. Or rather, letting it chase me. I didn't have a master plan. No blueprint. No business proposal. Just space, empty and unfamiliar. At first, it felt terrifying. Then freeing. I'd wake up without alarms. Sit by the window with my journal. Watch the light shift across the floor. I had no title. No deadlines. No one expecting anything from me. And for a while, that silence screamed, "You're wasting time. You're falling behind. You're a disappointment." I ignored it the best I could. One afternoon, while scrolling aimlessly, I saw a flyer at the coffee shop near my apartment. Volunteers needed. Digital literacy for seniors. Wednesdays and Fridays. Help bridge the tech gap and make someone's day. I don't know what made me sign up. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe I just needed to feel useful again. So I showed up the next Friday at the local senior center, half expecting to hate it. The room was modest, fluorescent lighting, mismatched chairs, a wheezing old projector. About a dozen elderly faces stared at me, all of them a mix of curiosity and quiet skepticism. My co-volunteer, a woman named Sharon, greeted me warmly. "You're Ava, right? The new girl?"
"Yeah."
First day, I mumbled, clutching my tote bag like it was a shield. "You'll be fine," she smiled. "They're stubborn but sweet." The first person I worked with was Dolores, 83, fiercely independent, with lipstick that never quite stayed on her lips. She looked at the tablet in front of her like it was a bomb. "This thing hates me," she muttered, eyes squinting at the glowing screen. "No," I smiled, pulling up a chair beside her. "It just doesn't know you yet." For the next hour, I helped her learn how to check her email. We practiced typing. She struggled with the space bar. We laughed a lot. She cursed under her breath like a sailor. And when she finally sent her first message, she clapped like a child who had just won a spelling bee. "You brought my baby into my living room," she whispered suddenly, her eyes misting. I looked at her, confused. "My son," she explained. "He's stationed in Guam. I haven't seen him in over a year. But now I can write to him." Something in me cracked open. It didn't feel like much. I hadn't saved a life. I hadn't argued a case in court. But something inside me whispered, "This matters." I kept coming back. Tuesdays turned into Thursdays. Fridays turned into weekends. Soon I was teaching mini classes. Intro to smartphones, how to use FaceTime, scam emails 101. I started designing simple handouts. Then video tutorials. Then built a basic website to organize them. They started calling me the Tech Whisperer. There was Mr. Halvorsen, who FaceTimed his granddaughter for the first time and cried for 10 minutes straight. There was Linda, who launched a recipe blog and got 300 followers in a week. There was George, who asked me to help him write an email to his high school sweetheart after 60 years of silence. "I just want to say hi," he said, eyes twinkling. Every person I helped added another brick to a quiet foundation I didn't realize I was building. And still no one in my old life knew. To them, I had disappeared. But I hadn't disappeared. I had emerged, just in a direction they never looked. One evening, after class, Sharon turned to me as we packed up supplies. "You're really good at this, Ava." I shrugged, trying to hide the warmth in my chest. "No, I mean it," she continued. "Most people teach information. But you teach dignity." That night, I sat on my porch with a cup of tea and cried, not because I was sad, but because I hadn't heard words like that in years. Words that saw me, not my potential, not my titles.
Me.
I began writing again, too, not essays or law briefs, but reflections. Quiet thoughts. Observations from the center. I'd share little stories on a blog I called Still Learning. No ads. No audience in mind. Just truth. I wrote about Dolores and her war with the tablet. about George's nervous fingers hovering over the send button, about the feeling of watching someone remember their value.
People started reading.
Then subscribing. Then emailing. Your story reminds me of my daughter. Thank you for making me feel seen. Please don't stop writing. It didn't make headlines. No blue check marks. No viral moment. But it mattered. It mattered in the quiet way that roots matter, unseen, underground, holding everything up. I wasn't chasing anymore. I was becoming. By the time winter rolled around, things had started to shift. What began as a few handouts and tech tutorials at the senior center was now becoming something bigger, something I couldn't ignore, even if I tried. At Sharon's suggestion, I applied for a small community grant to expand the digital literacy program. To my surprise, we got approved. $12,000. Enough to buy tablets, headphones, and a few rolling carts for mobile workshops. I partnered with 2 local libraries and 1 retirement home. We rebranded as Digital Roots. The name felt right. It wasn't about teaching old people to be tech-savvy. It was about helping them reconnect with family, with lost passions, with dignity. I spent evenings designing new materials, shot simple videos with my iPhone, created a resource hub with voiceover instructions. I wasn't a tech expert, but I knew how to explain things like I was teaching someone I loved. Our reach grew. By March, we were onboarding 1,200 seniors per month across 3 counties. Our average workshop rating, 4.9 out of 5. Our monthly newsletter, 78% open rate. That's higher than some Fortune 500 companies. We had waiting lists, testimonials, thank you cards stacked in my kitchen. One woman even baked me a pecan pie every Thursday. I felt full in a way I never did in my corporate internships. Not because I was praised, but because I was needed. And still my family didn't ask. They knew I wasn't doing law anymore. They knew I hadn't gone back to Ethan either. But they didn't ask what filled my days. Didn't ask why I looked lighter, calmer, more rooted. It was easier for them to believe I was just figuring things out. Like I was still in a phase. Like I hadn't done anything real. During a family dinner one Sunday, my cousin Taylor mentioned her new job at a startup. Everyone leaned in. My dad nodded. My mom clapped. Even my brother, Jordan, toasted to her ambition. Then my mom turned to me. So, Ava, you're still volunteering at the old folks' home, right? I forced a smile. Yeah, something like that. She nodded, distracted. That's sweet. You've always been the nurturing one. Nurturing. Like I was playing with dolls instead of building something sustainable, something impactful. Jordan chuckled. Teaching old folks to click buttons? Real noble work. I didn't say anything.
Just took a sip of my wine.
In their eyes, I was still floating, still off track. No title. No office. No corner suite. Just Ava figuring it out. What they didn't know was that Digital Roots had just received a feature in the Asheville Times. The article was titled, Modern Connection Through Vintage Hands. We were getting inquiries from cities 3 states over. And I didn't even tell them. Not out of spite, but because I no longer needed them to be proud of me in order to feel proud of myself. Still, some moments stung. Like when my old classmate Jenna, now a junior partner at a firm in Charlotte, posted a photo in a power suit with a caption. Closing deals. Making moves. Girl bossing my way through 2025. The comments flooded in. So proud of you. You're unstoppable. Teach me your ways. I liked the photo.
Genuinely.
But I couldn't help but wonder. If I posted a picture from a workshop where Linda FaceTimed her great-granddaughter for the first time, would anyone clap? Would they see it as success? Would they even look? But then I'd remember Dolores's hands shaking as she typed, or the way Mr. Halvorson said thank you like it came from the bottom of his lungs. And I knew the answer. Recognition is sweet. But resonance, that's the real reward.
So I kept going.
I started mentoring younger volunteers, built a toolkit that other communities could replicate, began consulting for aging care centers on tech accessibility. And slowly, Digital Roots stopped being just a program. It became a movement. One day, after a workshop, Sharon handed me an envelope. Inside was a letter from a woman named Tracy Calloway, a regional director at a nonprofit alliance. She had attended one of our sessions quietly. I hadn't even noticed.
Her letter said,
"Your work restores dignity. It's not just service, it's revolution. Let's talk about taking this national." I stood in the parking lot, holding that letter like it was gold. And maybe it was. Not because it meant money or status, but because it meant I wasn't invisible anymore. Not to everyone. Just not to the ones who once mattered most. And that's when I realized I wasn't chasing them. I was leading something that didn't need their applause to grow. It was a quiet Thursday morning when everything shifted. I was standing in front of the mirror, getting ready for another interview, when I caught a glimpse of myself, not the messy-haired, rejected girl from weeks ago, but a version of myself I hadn't truly seen before. Strong, focused, resilient. I whispered to my reflection, "You're not chasing anyone ever again." That day, something snapped into alignment. I wasn't trying to prove anything to Ethan or Madison, or even my past self. I just wanted to build something that was mine. A few nights earlier, I'd been up scrolling job listings when an idea struck. I remembered how, back in college, I used to help small local brands build their social media presence for free. It lit me up. It made me feel powerful. That feeling came rushing back like an old friend. What if I started my own digital branding agency? I laughed out loud at the idea.
"Me?
Start a business?" But the thought wouldn't let go. I spent the entire night mapping out a vision board. I called it Purpose Avenue, a place where purpose meets strategy. It was raw and imperfect, but it was mine. By the end of the week, I had a name, a logo, and a basic website. I put together case studies from the brands I helped in college, even emailed a few old professors asking for testimonials. To my surprise, they remembered me well. Then came my first breakthrough. A Black-owned candle business based in Atlanta reached out to me. They had stumbled across my website and wanted a full brand overhaul. I pitched them a full strategy, complete with visual direction, content plans, and SEO optimization, all the things I had mastered behind the scenes during my silent seasons. They hired me on the spot. I screamed into my pillow that night. I couldn't believe it. I was doing it. I was living it. Every late night Madison and Ethan thought I was crying. I was studying marketing strategies. Every brunch I missed because I wasn't in the mood. I was building the foundation of Purpose Avenue. Success didn't flood in overnight. But day by day, I was stacking bricks. I bought a secondhand camera. I upgraded my laptop. I learned how to manage invoices, taxes, and contracts. My confidence grew like roots from the inside out. The girl who once begged for love and validation now had clients depending on her, branding packages booked months in advance, and emails asking for mentorship. And I hadn't looked back once. I didn't just survive the heartbreak. I alchemized it. I turned it into a business, a passion, a mission. I wasn't chasing people anymore. I was chasing my purpose. And in the process, I found myself. Today, as I sit on the panel at the Women in Tech and Transformation Conference in New York, the same city where I once sat alone crying on a park bench, I'm reminded that divine detours are often painful, but perfect. I look out into the sea of young women, eyes filled with dreams and insecurities, and I know them, because I was them. I was the girl who begged someone to love her, the girl who questioned her worth every time someone walked away.
But now,
I'm the woman who walks in purpose, not for applause, not for revenge, but because I finally understand my worth was never meant to be measured by who stayed or left. After launching my own wellness tech company, SoulSet, dedicated to helping women reconnect with their emotional intelligence through AI and meditation, life unfolded in ways I couldn't have imagined. Within 2 years, we were featured in Forbes, Time, and partnered with university campuses across the country. My old heartbreak? It became fuel. The pain didn't destroy me. It refined me. I never chased them. Not Elijah, not the job that discarded me, not even the friends who ghosted me once I stopped shrinking. I ran straight toward healing, purpose, and radical self-respect. I ran toward becoming the version of me that was buried under people-pleasing and perfectionism. Funny thing is, they circled back. All of them. Elijah sent a long message on LinkedIn after seeing a Soul Set interview go viral. "I've always believed in you," he wrote. "But belief without action is just noise." I didn't reply. Even my old boss from the law firm emailed me, asking if I'd consider partnering with their new diversity initiative. The irony made me laugh. The girl they thought was just a soft-spoken, replaceable assistant was now being invited as a keynote speaker. But the biggest moment wasn't revenge. It was peace. It came one morning in Joshua Tree during a Soul Set retreat I was hosting. As I watched a group of women meditate beneath the rising sun, one of them, tears streaming down her face, whispered, "You saved me." I didn't need closure after that, because I had something better: contribution. My pain had found its place. My heartbreak had a home. And my soul? It was finally at rest. To anyone listening, let me tell you this. You don't have to chase people who can't see your worth. Let them misunderstand you. Let them walk. And then run. Not after them, but straight into your destiny. Because when you choose your purpose over your pain, you don't just survive. You rise. Months passed, and what once felt like a wound had now become the very reason Harper walked taller, breathed deeper, and smiled wider. Her podcast, Purpose in Progress, had gone viral after she interviewed a woman who escaped an abusive relationship and rebuilt her life from scratch. The episode struck a nerve globally. Harper began receiving messages from women in Ghana, Korea, and across the US thanking her for telling stories no one else dared to. She wasn't just healing anymore. She was a catalyst for healing. She'd moved into her own 2-bedroom apartment in Austin, filled with secondhand furniture, thrifted art, and plants she talked to like old friends. It wasn't fancy, but it felt sacred. Peaceful. Her peace. And then, one quiet Saturday morning, her phone buzzed. "Avery.
Hey.
Just wondering if you want to catch up. No pressure." Harper read the text twice, expressionless. Then she smiled, not the type that rushed to say yes, but the kind that came when you finally realized you owed nothing to your past. "I wish you well. But I've moved on." No shade. No sarcasm. Just the truth. That same day, she got an email from a woman named Keisha Owens, the founder of an empowerment summit in Atlanta. "Your story has reached so many. We'd be honored to have you speak this year. All expenses covered." Harper put the phone down and stared out the window. Her voice, once dismissed, overlooked, even mocked, was now her tool. Her truth. Her purpose. At the summit 2 months later, she stood in front of a room packed with women from all walks of life. When it was her turn to speak, she walked to the stage with calm power in her step and no trace of the girl who used to wait for a reply that never came. "My name is Harper Grace Morgan. I used to think being chosen was the highest form of validation. I used to believe that love was something I had to earn, and that if someone walked away, I had to chase. But now I know. I was never meant to chase anyone who couldn't see me. I was meant to become someone I could finally see." The room burst into applause, not just because she was strong, but because she was real. Afterward, one teenage girl walked up with teary eyes. "You reminded me that I don't have to wait for someone to see my worth." Harper gently touched her shoulder.
No, sweetheart.
"You only need to see it for yourself." And in that moment, Harper finally understood.
They thought she'd chase them.
But they had no idea. She was already running into her purpose.